back to the people track at Type 3D Printing. We are delighted to have a joint session right now that is going to be fantastic, sharing some excellent expertise. I am now inviting to the stage Jill Christner and Laura Ely. Jill, Laura, once you are on stage, please turn your cameras and mics on. Hi, Jill, great to see you.
Sarah, how are you?
Fantastic, great to have you.
Thanks.
All right, ladies, we're so happy to hear from you, and the stage is all yours.
Thank you.
All right. Good afternoon. Jill and I are going to talk about things that are passionate and near and dear to our hearts as women in manufacturing that have had the opportunity to build teams and drive technological adoption. But since I'm an MMP nerd myself, self-proclaimed, I thought it might be fun to start off with a couple of process videos. But what I want you to reflect on as we look at these is all the technology, the physics, the math, the engineering that went into developing these processes. The first process is a binder jet printing process. And this is actually shot with X-ray imaging. You can see the binder coming down and interacting with the particles. The next one is from our friends over at Form Alloy, and this is a blown powder process. And this is showing how in-process camera monitoring and sensing can be used. And you can see as the particles are actually entering the melt pool as they build the part there. And the final one, I'd be quite remiss if I didn't take a walk inside the new SLM Next Gen system with 12 lasers. I think for me, this one, since we've done some look at the economics of this, it's really exciting to see that many melt pools going on, as well as the build size that we're seeing there. And so these technologies are really cool. And if you reflect on what was required to get to the point that we see to even have these videos and this exciting technology existing, is a whole lot of technology plans and development. But all of those things had one really, really important thing in common.
People, right, Laura? People. And it's people and how their collective knowledge is applied that really drives the technology adoption. It's important to note that there are distinct phases of the technology adoption, and we'll get into some of those, but then there's also unique knowledge requirements within additive manufacturing. And much to my dismay, it is not just about the printing process. So what are we talking about? Organizational knowledge. What does it mean, and kind of what are we talking about? It's really kind of taking a look at the full scope of the knowledge and the skills within our teams, or the gaps that we may have within our teams, and how do we utilize that to become more effective. Within that scope, there's defined knowledge. There's also a bit the fringe knowledge. We talk about the head knowledge. We talk about kind of the procedural knowledge that we know. And then there's also always the loved brainiac knowledge.
Yeah, I think we used to joke, there was a guy, Harold, that I worked with, and when we had a really hard problem, we just said, go to Harold. I think he goes in the know-how category.
Yep. Yeah. Okay, so this question comes up a lot. What skills and knowledge are required to drive the adoption of AM technology? So often it's not just about, AM versus traditional. We go in and we make a sale of AM to help in understanding what is AM and where can it be beneficial. But okay, so what are the skills and the knowledge required here? And all good engineers say, it depends.
It depends.
It depends. Laura, you know this all too well. So take us through these key phases.
Yeah, so this is one, having the opportunity to lead technology teams, I've actually thought about this quite a bit. But Gartner has a hype cycle. It was originally developed actually for financial investment, and it really was an assessment of risk of where a technology was in the development cycle. But you can see it's a graph of time versus expectations. starting with an innovation trigger to the peak of inflated expectations, which sounds negative, but it actually is kind of a requirement, and we'll talk to that a little bit later, to the trough of disillusionment when you get into the reality of perhaps we're trying to do this in more of a production basis and there's new problems that we didn't know about, the slope of enlightenment as you work your way out of those, and the plateau of productivity really represents widespread adoption and stability and maturity. And another process that's used to assess technology maturity is the NASA Technology Readiness Level Scale. And so this can kind of roughly be mapped to this. It's a little bit different, but this scale really looks at a technology, and 1 would be the light bulb moment, like I sketched on the back of a napkin, a concept, and 10 would be it's in series production and used pervasively for a long time. But I think what's important for us to think about is each of these technology phases have different activities related to them, which means the people and the skill sets that you need for those phases are going to be uniquely different, with the lower TRLs being more around invent and create and think outside the box. Those middle TRLs are get you through the valley of death and get this into something that can be used in production. So a lot of that is incremental innovations and making it work. And then the TRL 8 to 10 is really that continual improvement process that you see once you're in, a quality system environment in a production setting.
Yeah, so just digging into this AM workflow a little bit, it's really describes the collection of the steps required that we need to create in AM, starting with concept and the steps that it takes to get into the design. And then once we dial in that design and all the different pieces of it, then we move into production. And so it's really taken a whole level encompassing the entire system of design. We need this broad knowledge of the AM value stream, even if we only provide one step in the whole piece of it. So we may just be the post process, we may just be the build. We can't operate in a vacuum exclusive to the other pieces and still enable the success of the whole finished product. I'm a bit impartial to the printer, but without the other pieces of that, there's not value. What do you do? Like a customer buys only a printer, they're not done. They don't have a finished product. And so and then also, I'm impartial to the laser powder bed, but that may not be the technology that best fits your application. So there needs to be thought in the requirements of your technology.
Which brings us to a maturity model that we use at TBGA. We call it the TBGA AM maturity model. But what it does is it helps break down what is your goal? What are your product requirements? And really how difficult and critical are they? Because as you can imagine, the criticality of your application, if it's relatively simple or we're doing it at a level 0 where we're in a pre-production prototyping environment, the blue represents the skills. The skills required to do that, are understanding basic materials and processes, but they're not nearly as rigorous as they will be as we move up. So tools and fixtures up to part for part substitution at level 2, and then into 3 and 4, which I like to call like the ninja level AM design space, where you pretty much need to be a black belt at this point in design for additive manufacturing and modify for additive manufacturing. But you also really have to have refined many other things, including how to build business cases and business models and how to do things in a quality and a manufacturing environment. So we thought that would be helpful if we kind of talked about, from our past experience or our current experience, some examples of where we have been in our technology journeys and kind of what that looked like and the team looked like. So the one that I think is helpful to think about because it's unique in the stage was I had the opportunity to stand up a laser wire directed energy deposition team for GKN Aerospace way back in the day. And this is what I have left to show for it. I've got my nice little DUD piece. No, I'm kidding. There's an amazing team still there doing amazing work. But I was person number 1 for additive manufacturing in the US for GKN. So at that time, it required me to attempt to have all the organizational knowledge, which of course wasn't really doable, but there was a lot of building strategy and then also trying to build the team. But the thing that I commented on, the peak of inflated expectations, I actually had to work to create that, because I needed to convince several CEOs, I think it was 3 in total, that needed to sign off on my $5 million plus CapEx package to go buy my big system and put it together. I had to convince them that this was a good investment for them to make. And to get to that point, you have to paint a picture. And so I teamed up with our VP of business development at the time. Great guy, really taught me how to understand how to pitch to CEOs. And we went around and we strategized and we evangelized for additive. And it was an education process at the time. The team that I stood up was highly multi-skilled because we were starting at like TRL 3. So I needed blue sky thinkers, I need materials guys, I need mechanical guys. And I just said guys, by the way, that means guys and girls, by the way. And as well as the boots on the ground manufacturing. So I had my Mark, had my Harold before I had my Mark, who could do anything mechanical, but also understood quality management systems. So that was that innovation and that hype that was required to get that program started. Now they're at a very different point, and I'm certain that they've started to adjust and modify skill sets based on the fact that their technology adoption journey is quite a bit more mature at this point. So I'll hand it over to Jill.
The green line. So the green line kind of represents where many of our, and at Excellent Solutions, many of our customers are kind of in their journey. And exciting for us, I think most know we released our new and next gen product line. First one coming out with the 600 by 600 cube with 12 lasers. And many of the companies and customers and partners that we're working with are in the phase where, okay, they're through the trough, they're coming out, and they're on either their enlightenment or they're plateaued of getting productivity. And that's really the goal of what this is. But as we look at the kind of the parallels of the journey of building an organization, as well as building the technology and the emerging technology that comes, they're a bit the same, right? So Laura mentioned I was the first person there. We didn't start with 12 lasers. We started with 1, right? So you get 1 laser, then we expanded the build plate, then we went to 2 lasers, expanded the build plate, and and then we go to quad laser, then we work a little bit on the gas flow, then we expand the build plate again, work a little bit on the software, and it's all the pieces coming together. Just like as you build an organization, I need Mike, I need Harold, you add all those together, and it's not simple. I kind of simplified and said, oh, we just added lasers and increased the build volume. All my love to the engineers and the R&D guys. I know it's not that simple, but the technology kind of snowballs just like kind of the organization does. And so all of this is made possible by the right team. So if you're a leader, the most important decisions that you make are your people decisions, because it drives everything else. I think this is just kind of, it depicts a good overall picture of developing your organization. So we're talking specifically today about additive manufacturing, and this is a cute chart, right? But in reality, it's for anything, not specific to AM, but that's what we're talking about today, because that's what we know and what we love. But it's critical for all the system views that we have, whether that's on a micro scale or macro scale. When we get any of these kind of out of balance, there are certainly challenges faced, but I do just want to reiterate that the people decisions are the most important. They'll drive, because it's people that you put in each of these triangles, that really, you then entrust them to make the decisions. You entrust them to hire the next team members. And so it really is, all of them drive together, but that people decision is your most critical one as you grow your organization.
I think this map does a nice job of mentioning some of those areas where, you know, it's important. You have to have people that understand the business case and the economics, as well as all of these different ways. And I think it's another thing to realize that there's not necessarily one right way to say, here's our organizational knowledge strategy, or here's how we're mapping things out. I think the most important thing is to have a strategy, to be intentional about how you're building things up. And every business is going to have some different things, because depending on what your core is and what you're bringing out to your customers is going to change. I've provided an example of what I had the opportunity to actually build for the Barnes Global Advisors. We chose to represent our experience in a heat map style. So since we're engineers, of course, it was in an Excel spreadsheet first, because all good things start in Excel. But what we did is we went as a team and we said, to be the value bringing people that we need to be in advising and training for additive manufacturing, what do we need to be competent in, and what do we need to be experts in? And the goal for us is not to have every member of our team be an expert or a peak in every single area. The goal, however, is for us to have a full breadth of experience and have at least one or two people that are true experts in each of these core topics. And so this was a way for us to go through and assess our own team. And then the other thing that provides for us is we've got, you know, plans in the 5-year, you know, area to grow more in the digital areas with AI and machine learning and those types of things. We have people in our team that are going to gain those skills, and we might bring new people onto the team and partnerships. But by being intentional about these areas and mapping that out, yes, it's a way to say, hey, we're awesome to our customers, but more importantly, it's a way for us to look at our team and make sure that we're balancing and using each other to the best value that we can. Do you want to comment on this one, Jill?
Yeah, I think that just to note again, you know, Laura kind of showed it was a hill climb, right? So no doubt this is a journey, and it doesn't happen overnight. So sometimes we can stay a little bit in that trough of despair for long periods of time if we don't have kind of the right mindset, and recognizing that we have to invest in our teams, we have to invest in the industry, we have to be willing to open up the industry a little bit. I know, you know, when I first joined the additive industry, it seemed very exclusive. And it took, you know, like, you're never going to get to the level of what everyone else already knows. It was a bit offish, but it took kind of almost events like this to do the networking, to expand our knowledge, and to recognize that we can go further together, because we all, just like in an organization, everybody brings their piece to the table. We all bring our piece to the table, whether it's DED or BinderJet, or the person that puts together the business case, or the engineer, or the you know, the production person, whatever that might be. It really takes all of it. I think a bit of a kind of a hot, let me go to the next page.
Yeah.
Okay, so then kind of a hot topic we have, you know, people are not a finite resource. Even throughout the global pandemic, there's been a challenge with, if you are willing to relocate, you will get stolen out of whatever company you are in, and you can go somewhere else. So the challenge of how do you build and retain a talented team? And I think this is where we have to kind of look at it and say, you know, why do we steal people? Why do we believe that there's just a finite group? How do we expand that into and make the pie bigger versus I just want a bigger slice of the pie? There are some really exciting things actually going on that I would be remiss not to talk about. There's, you know, if we look at the education, there's 2-year and 4-year. Carnegie Mellon has a program, Penn State has a program. We have a couple of our teammates going through that program right now. You can also do training, the comprehensive. I know Purdue has a program with your team, Laura, TVGA that you can get certificates online. And then also, MIT has a program as well. And then we're seeing more and more companies put it together for themselves, for how they learn and what specific applications work best for them, given the different industries that we work in. And then best of all, OTJ. So when we're on the job, learning it, great way to grow your talent there.
I think that's an excellent point, and we kind of talk about the wildness of this. So this is Cynthia will laugh because I've shown this before, but this is what I feel like a company is going to be. This is what you're doing to your people if you don't have an organizational knowledge strategy. They're just reacting. They're trying to figure out their role, and it's a bit of chaos. So, in closing, you heard me say this earlier. I think it's so important to be intentional with your people and with your organizational knowledge strategy. It's a good investment to make. You can start by asking your questions. What is your stage of technology maturity? What role do you play in the AM value chain? And then map that organizational knowledge that you need by phase. Build the team that then go and delivers that knowledge. But the other thing that I want to note here is when you have that organizational knowledge and those roles mapped out, it's easier for a team member to say, oh, here's where I fit, or here, my growth plans also fit with the phases and the organizational knowledge plans of our company, which really, really does help with the retain bit because everyone's looking to develop their own skills. And then finally, the great thing about having an organizational knowledge strategy is that parlays directly into your intellectual property. You can capture it, you can retain it, you can exploit it. And the final thing that I'll say before we switch over to questions is, we've talked a lot about organizational knowledge strategies, but I definitely encourage every one of you to build your own personal knowledge strategy, because just the same as a company, it's not so much about what your next role is, it's what are the skills and knowledge that you're going to gain that allow the opportunities in the future. So thank you. We will switch over to Q&A now. So feel free to pop any questions up. I'm going to try to stop sharing here. There we go. All right. So Jill, you see the, okay. Top of it is, if your team is at the beginning of their AM journey, are there training options available to help get them up to speed? So I think I'll take that one. So we talked about the variety of different offerings that are out there. Barnes Global Advisors certainly provides some of those. We've done bespoke trainings. We do workshops. Purdue AM Online Certificate it's a 15-week-ish course. You can start anytime. So there are options out there. Take a look. And I definitely encourage you. I think recruiters are now, if you can combine knowledge with education along with any level of on-the-job experience, it's obviously extremely marketable with respect to what's out there.
Hey, Laura, just a note on that also, on the trainings, there's also kind of the business track, and then there's also the technical track in those trainings, which can be also beneficial depending on what you're missing. Like you talked earlier about, I had to go convince the CEO. What does that convincing look like? Obviously, they're going to be looking for business cases, which is a very different conversation to have versus, I'm just trying to figure it out. How do I push print here? So I think that you can choose between the different trainings, kind of what you're looking for in the career path or what your organization specifically needs.
Yeah, absolutely. Excellent point. Okay, next question. What do you see in the space of adopting AM after an unprecedented 2020? So many words we could apply for 2020, isn't there? Are companies ready to move forward in manufacturing, or is production still halted? I've got some comments. You want to take that one first, Jill?
Sure. Yeah, I'll just give some experience that we're seeing in the market. We have seen some slowing in the aviation world, right? When you have planes grounded, never a good place for the aviation world to be in. However, we've still seen some startups. The space is still going really strong with Space Force being developed. We're still seeing a lot of startups in the space world, a lot of investment money going. to there. And then, medical stopped for a little bit in the craziness of COVID, and now that's kind of circling back, and they're doing okay. Automotive, they're slow, steady. For automotive, it's really about productivity and how do we get productivity, and where does AM apply such that we can truly get cost per part better than where we were at. So it's a balance. I think some have taken off and some have certainly slowed down as they pull back on capital.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I mean, if the busyness of an additive manufacturing consulting firm is any like litmus test of that, I can tell you we are insanely busy right now, which is a wonderful, wonderful challenge to have. But we did see some slowdowns, mid-year. It started to pick up towards the back half and then going into it. The neat thing is this gives us like this kind of temperature on the industry because we're supporting technical due diligence on possible acquisitions. We've already seen consolidation in this space. Consolidation is healthy. Mergers and acquisitions are good. It's a natural part of this. And even attrition and, some companies not making it, as painful as that is, it's still a natural part of the process. So while the pandemic probably added stress to a few things, I think other people also got more focused. And it just means that they need to nail their business case, their value proposition, and maybe even get a little more centered on what they're delivering to their customer, even more than before. So I still feel like there's plenty of help out there, and there's lots of bright, shining lights as far as optimism.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, the next question was, how does organization adoption relate to profitability in AM? I don't know if that was the specific, maybe organizational knowledge relate to profitability in AM. Maybe that's what I'm going to kind of guess that might be. With respect to the profitability in AM, I think often the business case that you start a technology journey on and the one you end up with are sometimes not the same thing. True for AM, true for many technologies. So I think, the final profitability, the best thing that you can do is to ensure that you are constantly looking at your process economics in your business case throughout your technology journey, whatever that is. You don't say, yeah, I ran numbers a year ago with my old assumptions, I'm good. But the other thing that I think can really help is if you try to stress test, you can say, hey, let's say we're doing laser powder bed fusion. If I got up to this layer thickness and I could go at this speed and hit this productivity for this set of assumptions, I can make a really good business case on this family of parts, those types of things. I think that having a good organizational knowledge strategy, which includes the ability to effectively assess business conditions, definitely will have a positive impact on, having a good, successful AM business.
Yeah, and Laura, just to tag on that, I think I'm going to pull my engineer card. It depends. What are you after? If you're looking for, is it you're trying to reduce weight? Is it you're trying to combine parts? Is it, what really are you after? But any healthy organization where you have your knowledgeable people, your go-to people, your productivity is going to improve, and you're going to be more profitable. So I think that's just part of why we're in the game, right? How do we move the manufacturing? Changes in manufacturing give different options. There's Sarah. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Jill. Hi, Laura. This
Hello.
is just a wonderful and engaging conversation, and I know I'm not alone in loving it. And while I know we all wish we could listen to you for a while yet to come, we are unfortunately out of time in our block today. So I'd like to thank you both so much for joining us at Type 3D Printing this year. It was truly a delight. I love this session, and you had so much to share with us. I know I learned a lot right now.
Thank you.
I'd like to invite you both to the networking stage over on the main stage later, so anyone with any further questions can catch up with you. And here at People, we'll be taking just a quick break, and we'll be right back with our last panel of the day.
Thanks, Sarah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.